Here we are down at Swift Creek Nursery in Johnston County, North Carolina, and we're pulling some plants together and doing some combos for the shade. Okay, so if you go to a garden center, you go to a nursery, and you find a couple things that you really like and you think they look great together, you know, how do you go about picking maybe a third thing or a fourth thing that would go with them, that would really match up well and not just blend in to the point of not having any differentiation between the different plants? And so we're starting out with this Aspidistra or cast iron plant. It has a very vertical habit. This is about as tall as it'll ever be. It just gets new leaves over time. In the late winter, early spring, you can come in and cut out the tattered leaves, but they tend to stay evergreen. It's just a great little vertical element in a shady space. They'll take dry shade, which is super important because as we're going to talk through this combo, we're thinking about other things that would take similar soil conditions as well. It's not just that they take shade, but some things for the shade actually need really moist conditions. Some things will tolerate drier conditions. So that may be something else you think about. Then we have this Marmorata Aucuba, which is a fantastic variegated Aucuba. We see gold dust frequently sold for the variegated or the splotched Aucubas. This one has way more color in it. We have a video on the Garden Plants with Jim Putnam channel about this particular Aucuba. Just a beautiful, beautiful plant. You'll notice both of these have a pretty broad leaf, right? So we're not getting a lot of differentiation necessarily in the size of the leaf, but we're getting a lot of color variation, obviously, between these two leaves. The other thing we're going to get is this Aucuba is going to get 4 or 5 feet tall in the landscape. It can be kept a little smaller than that. So we're going to get a height differentiation and a color differentiation between these two. As we pull in a few other plants into this, what is a duo right now, and we're going to pull in a third plant, we're going to look for something that differentiates itself from these two. The first thing we pulled in to the cast iron plant Aucuba combo is a prostrate plum yew. So this is a Cephalotaxus harringtonia, and this is Prostrata, which is the ground cover plum yew. We've shown these in lots of shade plant videos because they're incredibly drought tolerant. They're incredible in dry shade spaces. We've seen these on banks competing with roots in shady spaces. But the main thing we're bringing it into this combination for is you can see the difference in the texture and the difference in the leaf shape on this and how it contrasts so nicely with these much larger, almost tropical looking leaves on these two. It just is fantastic. It also is going to create a height differentiation because this is about as tall as these get. They spread outward on the ground. They might get 12 inches in height, something like that, but as wide as you want to let them get. They're slow growing, so they're not in any hurry. They're not going to take over your garden bed. But all three of these things together, just in a grouping where the Aucuba has is going to ultimately be the tallest thing, so you need to arrange them in some way where the Aucuba is the standout in the back. Your mid-sized plant is your cast iron plant, and then basically you have a ground cover evergreen that is, all three of these are incredibly low maintenance, really kind of easy plants. Once they get established, you can kind of walk away from them as long as you're getting kind of normal rainfall. Next up, we've put a soft caress Mahonia with this combo. And again, you're looking at this amazing soft texture in combination with these broadleaf evergreens. It looks fantastic. Again, we're also going to get a color difference in the foliage here too, where you're going to get this dark, rich green color on the cast iron plant. The soft caress Mahonia tends to have a kind of a blue-green foliage on it. So these are going to bloom with yellow flowers late fall, going into winter. Yellow flowers that the pollinators absolutely love. So in this close-up, you can see the difference in foliage color, the difference in texture, the difference we're going to have in heights, although the soft caress Mahonia and the cast iron plant are going to get a similar height, so we would think about that as we were, how we were going to arrange them. The Aucuba would still be in the back. One other thought on this type of arrangement is this cast iron plant is also available in variegated forms. So you could have a striped or a spotted form, and then you look at the Aucuba and think, well, that's going to be too much chartreuse, and it might be. There are green foliage Aucubas, so we could get our color in the cast iron plant and then go over to a green Aucuba. That would be an option as well. This round we've added an evergreen fern. This is a holly fern. really a great, almost underused plant. We'll see this when you think about ferns needing moist conditions, and it would probably like a little more water overall than the cast iron plant would, but I see these in dry shade places doing pretty daggone well considering it's a fern. In a nursery environment like this, these plants are all going to look the exact same height, but keep in mind that this Aucuba is going to grow quite a bit. This is about as tall as these holly ferns will ever be. This is as tall as this cast iron plant will ever be. Again, we've brought in, just a different texture and a slightly different green. Keep in mind, greens are colors, and so, looking for, shades of green. It can be very subtle in the garden, but you can put them up against each other and see, how they look together. All the new growth on this fern is a lighter green color than the growth that's on this cast iron plant. They look great together. It's another type of contrast, is just in green. And there's some great gardens. I've been to some great gardens with very few flowers in them, and just been amazed at how good someone was just thinking about the different size and shapes of the leaves and the different colors and shades of green, and then of course the gold or chartreuse colors that we can get in our gardens as well. The point of these combo videos is not necessarily showing you combos that you should run out and buy, although I think these are pretty good combos. These are as much about just showing we came in, saw this really beautiful Aucuba and said, hey, what would go with this? And then you pick something that will stay shorter than it and has a different color than it, but it has a similar leaf shape and or similar size of the leaf. Kind of both of these are kind of a little bit tropical looking. They both go in a shady space. They'll both kind of take moderately dry conditions or well-drained soils, so they match up perfect. And then you're looking for that third thing. That third thing could be something as basic as a ground cover, like a juga or something like that. That's another, it's just a shade ground cover that goes around them. Keep in mind, we're looking for typically odd numbers on most of these things. So we could get 1 Aucuba and 3 cast iron plants and 3 or 5 of this smaller growing thing, whatever works for your bed, for your situation. But keeping them in odd numbers is probably the best idea. That's a small bed. If you had a large bed, you could do 5 of these Aucuba and 9 of these cast iron plants, whatever. The third thing, or the fourth thing, the last one we're going to bring into this combo, this is a ground cover gardenia called, it's Radicans Gardenia. This is another one that pretty much likes to dry out between rains and watering, so they're going to match up in that regard with these. It has that lanceolate leaf again, so it's this narrow foliage. It does flower. It has very fragrant white flowers. The green coloration in the leaf is pretty much the same as the cast iron plants. There's not a lot of contrast there, but the new growth on the gardenias is a light green, almost lime green kind of color. I think this combination looks great together. This is coming from someone with a lot of variegated and chartreuse colored plants in their garden. Be careful with them. I would, probably just pick one if it's in a small combination like this. And unless you're able to pull 2 things together and go, wow, that really does look good together, be careful with that. Sometimes plants are changeable during the year as well. So there's things like kaleidoscope abelia, which kind of turn orangey in the wintertime. You need to think about that. If there's a change, there's going to be some sort of change in the foliage color during the year and how that's going to match the other things that are around it. So this is mostly southern plants that we have, are plants that aren't that cold tolerant, or plants for the southeast that we've shown in this video, but these concepts will work on pretty much anything. You can go into a garden center, find a couple of things you like that you think go well together, and then pull some other things to them and ask yourself, how does it contrast? How does it stand out from the other 2 things I picked? And that'll go a long way to finding these types of combinations, regardless of where you live and what plants are available to you in your area. So I think that's it for this combo, and we will be doing lots of these additional combo videos. We've done, this is a shade one, or mostly shade, part shade, plants for part shade conditions. We'll be doing full sun ones, and for all different kinds of things, including screening and all kinds of different combos. So thank you guys for following along.